Deteriorating global economic conditions and domestic constraints reduced revenues and squeezed the tax base. It came as no surprise when the finance minister said there was little room for new spending priorities over the next 3 years.
I've already indicated that our revenue estimates are adjusted down in this medium-term budget policy statement as a result of the slowdown in economic activity. Gross tax revenue is revised down by 7.6 billion rands this year and by 35 billion rands over the 3-year period.
The minister said there would be no room for expanding government employment and warned against demands for higher wages. The recent public sector wage agreement forced the Treasury to use up its reserve funds and created a shortfall of close to $3 billion. The finance minister also sounded a warning to loss-making state-owned enterprises.
Honourable members, financing of state-owned companies that are responsible for growth-enhancing infrastructure investment is one thing. But relief for entities that should be self-sustaining or that have mismanaged their commercial activities is quite another. This remains a serious risk to the medium-term fiscal outlook. Work has therefore begun on a legislative framework to regulate state-owned companies.
The Treasury is likely to raise taxes to shore up its balance sheet. The minister alluded to further taxes on mining, small business, VAT, and a possible wealth tax. A new carbon tax is also being drafted.
A structural change in expenditure would have to be accompanied by corresponding revenue measures. Without economic growth, ladies and gentlemen and honourable members, revenue will not increase. And without revenue growth, expenditure cannot increase.
As usual, the largest chunk of the budget will go to education, healthcare and social grants. $20 million has also been allocated to support preparatory work for nuclear procurement. The Treasury will continue to look at shares that it holds in private companies to raise some of the funds it needs. The sale of its stake in Vodacom raised $2.5 billion. $2.3 billion will go to Eskom and $200 million will go to the BRICS New Development Bank as an initial capital contribution. It felt more like a socialist budget rather than a real working economic one. However, after the recent student protests that we've seen across the country in recent weeks, some would argue otherwise. There does seem to be more systems in place in terms of addressing inefficiencies across government, which include the use of new technologies. But there just wasn't enough in this budget to assure investors and the public of South Africa that there are plans to revive this economy. Sumitra Nydoo, CCTV, Cape Town.